Hi, welcome to NTTS Leadership. I'm Jane King.
I'm Matt Doherty. Each month on NTTS Leadership, powered by Sector Spider, ETF, we will focus on the leadership journey of our guests and what they learned along the way. We will talk to amazing leaders in both the private and public sectors.
We'll dig deep and speak to accomplished business leaders and discuss how a leadership platform is essential to meet goals and inspire others.
It's brought to you monthly by Sector Spider ETF. Here we go.
Welcome to NTTS Leadership. I'm Jane King.
And I'm Matt Doherty. And with us today is the president of IMG Academy, Tim Pernetti. Welcome, Tim.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. You had a lot of great leadership experiences along the way. Tell me, what is your philosophy as a leader at IMG Academy?
Well, I think my philosophy in leadership has developed over years. And you're around people where you learn good leadership traits, and I think you learn some things that you probably prefer to leave in the trash. But over time, I don't think it's just been the academy. Over time, I've developed my own style, and I've tried to apply it everywhere. It starts with transparency. I think that generally people are reluctant to share information about their business, about their company at a leadership perspective, unless it's on a need-to-know basis. But being transparent makes people feel more invested in what you're doing. I'm big on accountability, starting with myself. Like, everybody has a boss. I expect to be held accountable. I hold people accountable, and part of holding people accountable is making sure things are very clear. What you expect is very, very clear.
Accountability, I think, is one of the biggest challenges for all leaders. How do you do that? How do you hold somebody accountable?
It starts with the first conversation. I went to IMG Academy in March of 2020 during COVID and inherited 1,000 employees, nobody that I really knew, and I had to get to know people. But once I had my arms around it, it starts with setting very clear expectations. Like, I think the big problem we have in leadership oftentimes is people don't understand what the expectations are. So when there is failure or success, nobody's really sure how you got there. But it starts with being very, very clear, setting expectations, and then you have to revisit the expectations. And honestly, you have to tear down the walls and have the conversation, revisit them when things aren't going well. But number one rule in leadership is your people need to know that you care about them and you have their back. Like, my people know that I'll fight for them, but they also have to know it's not personal. When you revisit expectations and talk accountability, it's not personal. It's about what you're trying to achieve together.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting you mentioned accountability, because even if you own a business, you're still accountability to customers, or, so that everybody's accountable to something. And what would you say are your proudest leadership moments that you've had?
Oh, wow. There's been a lot of things that I've accomplished that I'm proud of, and there's been a lot of failures that I really learned from, which have been even more valuable. But professionally, I would say the two I would put at the top of my list would be, I was part of the launch of arguably one of the last linear sports networks. It was a college sports cable network called CSTV. And it wasn't about, building it. They hired me when I was 30 years old to do all the deals and bring in all the rights. But the night we flipped the switch and turned that network on, I just got chills everywhere in my body. And then I got scared because I realized we weren't going to be able to turn it off if something went wrong. But that was one. And then later on in my career, I went back to my alma mater at Rutgers to serve as athletic director, which was arguably one of the hardest leadership challenges I ever had. But I was on a mission to get Rutgers into the Big Ten. And the day that I woke up and went to that press conference and looked down the barrel of those cameras, it was amazing. But I got to be honest with the two of you, the proud moments I have in leadership happen every single day. I write 25 handwritten notes a week. I make phone calls to people, and I get them in return. And when I get an email, or I get a text, or I get a call, or somebody sticks their head in my office to say thank you, those are the most validating leadership moments to me.
Well, you were successful. I just want to mention getting Rutgers in the Big Ten, because they always beat my Boilermakers in basketball. So
sorry about that. The only thing I promised is I couldn't guarantee the results. I'd get them in, but the results were up to the coaches. So
you talk, and this is something I love to hear, and the admission of the rough patches, the adversity. You go back to your alma mater. Sure. You're the athletic director. You've got things rolling until they don't, and then you're asked to leave. What did you learn in that experience, going through adversity, you know, not hitting adversity and stopping? What did you learn, and what lessons do you use today as the president of IMG Academy?
I think you learn to stay in the moment, you know, because that moment I just described to the two of you, I had this vision of something, and then you see it happening before your eyes. It's the high of highs in any professional career. Something that you knew, you could see it, you knew there was a path to it, and you achieved it. And then 3 months later, I was out of a job. So it really taught me to stay in the moment. It also taught me that whole experience, because 7 days after that press conference, I saw this tape of this basketball coach and his behavior. What I learned at that moment, and when I ultimately was fired from that job, was to trust my gut. Because I knew when I left that meeting what had to be done, but instead of going and doing it, I tried to figure out how I was supposed to run through a process by the book and make sure that a university that I love, that gave me an opportunity to go to college, that we did everything by the book. But I really learned to trust my gut. And quite honestly, Matt, it was a real character moment for me, because I think at times like that, it was visceral, it was public, it was national. I got sick of seeing it on television. And when I had eventually talked to the media, I had one shot to make sure people know who I was. And that was really challenging to do.
How do you rebound from that? How do you get that next job? Because, you know, here you are, one of the hottest ADs in the country, and then you're not.
Right.
And now you got to go and kind of dust yourself off and get back on the saddle. How did you reinvent yourself?
I didn't know how to do it, because during that week, as I saw what was about to happening, I felt like I would be unhireable, not just in college athletics, but in the business.
Right.
And I think it was a normal reaction to have. But if you can picture, you know, getting fired, going home, trying to look presentable, and walking to the end of my driveway with satellite trucks, and that 50-yard walk, like the North Jersey Italian came out in me, I was thinking about all the things I could say and all the people I could talk about. But when I got to the end of the driveway, I thought, here's my moment to start the narrative about who I am. And in that moment, I talked about being sad and my role in it, and I accepted responsibility for the role I played in it, and I never spoke about it again. And I had my first job offer 8 hours later. And what I realized was I did something right. Like that 50-yard walk and all the thoughts that I had, and coming to the determination that this was the one chance I was going to get to show people who I was and what my character was, started the process. And then from there, you dust yourself off, you reconnect with people in the industry, and you suddenly realize it's going to be okay.
So you take over. Managing change is an art form. And you had experience managing change prior. How did you manage the change in taking over IMG when you had no experience with IMG prior?
Yeah, but the closest experience I had to being in that type of environment was when I was at Rutgers, because you have student athletes, you have a school, but this is way different. Like, you're dealing with young people. Like, college athletes are young people, but you're dealing with 6th grade to 12th grade. It's a totally different dynamic. And you're dealing with parents that have seriously invested in the success of their young people in a boarding school and a sports environment. But my approach is the same everywhere I've gone that's been new. I spend the first 90 days listening. I'm out, I'm accessible, I meet with people, I listen, I ask questions. Everybody thinks a leader that asks questions is a loaded question. I actually ask questions because I don't know the answer. But I spent 90 days really trying to understand the business, and I had a great team there that taught me the business. And then we were able to bring people along and say, there's a new way to go. Like, this will always be core to what we do, but we can take this, we can create a customer base outside of the physical destination. We have experts inside the walls. Let's take them outside the walls and see what we can do with it. This acquisition by EQT and our future collaboration with their owned property, Nord Anglia Education. Nord Anglia is a massive global leader in education. Now suddenly we're at the table with 83 other boarding schools, like the collaboration academically, matriculation of students, sports. They have these similar relationships with Juilliard and with MIT. I think the next chapter of this thing is going to be fantastic, because it's not anything anybody imagined at IMG Academy 10 years ago.
Well, and I love the listening part of it, because you really have to kind of lay the groundwork before you know what kind of decisions you need to make. So.
Yeah, being that leader that is vulnerable, that admits that you don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
I think people lean into that and respect that, and then you put the right, cast the vision, you drive the culture, and you engage in large business transactions, and that seems to be exactly what you've done at IMG.
Yeah, I'm pinching myself a little bit on this last one, because when I came to IMG in 2015 to run the college business, which was a commercial business, and we sold it a few years later, I was pinching myself on that. This one is different. I never really envisioned this happening at the Academy, and I don't think my partners there did either, but leadership is listening. If you're not listening, then you can't be a good leader. Every great idea doesn't come out of who's in charge. People forget that. And vulnerability, like what you said, Matt, I think there's a lot of leaders, and I've worked for some, like they want you to think they don't eat, they don't sleep, they never get sick. It's just not reality. Like I think it's the way I was raised in a very tight-knit Italian family in North Jersey. Like we wear it on our sleeve. And I think if you are real with people, and you are who you are at work, at home, or anywhere else, it inspires people and they let their guard down. I think the number one rule is when we have young leaders in any business I've been in, they say, help me understand. I say, be accessible. Be visible, be accessible. Make sure people feel like they can approach you and talk to you, even if it's a personal issue. But being accessible, I think, is the number one rule. It's hard. Like some days it's actually impossible.
To do that, you have to have a really good team around you and delegate, so it frees you up to be accessible. And I think some CEOs, presidents, feel that if they're not busy, they feel guilty. They operate out of fear, obligation, guilt. I'm obligated to do this job. I'm afraid what other people think. I'm guilty about delegating, and now I don't have a full calendar, but by having an open calendar, you become accessible.
100%. And by the way, if you're going to hire good people around you, there's two schools. Number one is I'm going to surround myself with good enough people, and I'm going to drive the bus. My thing is like get great people that want your job or could do your job, and cut them loose. Like set expectations, be very, very clear about what you need them to do, and then cut them loose.
Yeah.
And some that like don't feel comfortable cut loose, they come in and like, Tim, what do you think? I'm like, get out. Go make the decision. Like you have the job for a reason. I'll give you advice, but I'm not going to make the decision for you. People feel so empowered by that. And honestly, going back to small things, a core of good leadership, at least in my book, is recognition. Like everybody wants to make more money. Everybody wants to get paid. That's reality. But you'd be amazed by the power of a handwritten note, or the power of a phone call, or me calling a young sales executive like I did 2 weeks ago who made his first sale and grabbing a cup of coffee with him and getting to know who he is. Recognition means everything to people.
I'd like to maybe put a bow on this, as I think the 50-yard walk.
Are we gonna cut a deal, do a book here?
Actually, I've been talking to my attorney in the last 10 minutes. I got a patent on it now, so I'll sell it to you. Okay. Just go back to that 50-yard walk and think of where you are now. Did you ever think you'd be in this position?
No.
Back then?
No. Absolutely not.
And you wouldn't be in this position without that experience at Rutgers, that 50-yard walk.
100%. Listen, you have to take some learning from every situation, good or bad. Because most people are like, that was bad, I'm closing the door. I'm not talking about it again, I'm not going to think about it again. But you can't develop as an individual or as a leader or as a person without reflecting on some of the stuff that was hard. And what I always say, because I have a young son who's in college who wants to be in sports and one who's already in sports. And what I say is, if you want to play at a high level, be prepared to get caught holding the bag at some point. That's the reality. I know it's something you can identify with in your career.
Yeah.
It's the reality, but it can't be a deterrent from wanting to continue to pursue, because grit is everything in this business.
Yeah.
It just separates a big group of people from a small group of people.
Really good advice. A good way to end it. Thank you so much, Tim.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
I'm Matt Doherty. With us today is Tony Raynor, the CEO of the Sustainable Green Team. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yes, good to have you here. Tell us a little bit about your company.
Yeah, so the Sustainable Green Team is a very innovative company that has been transforming from a mulch company into a green tech provider and soil industry.
Mm-hmm. And you're in a leadership position. I mean, you founded this company, CEO of the company. Talk about that and what lessons have you learned about leadership?
Yeah, leadership is really, that's what we call we don't have a management team, we call it a leadership team. And you have a lot of different personalities throughout a company and a lot of things that are developed different ways and different styles. And we like to really have a transparent company where we're able to be open with one another and really have a culture of, and powerful leaders that bring different things to the table beyond just, your typical management teams.
Mm-hmm.
With over 225 employees, how have you figured out the best way to lead such a large group?
Well, I think it really goes back to having a leadership team. There's so many different facets and different talents, and being able to keep the right talents in the right lane, and working together with different departments, whether that's through HR or different key production managers that work and handle and have a certain amount of authority to make certain decisions to work together with their team.
Mm-hmm. And many leaders don't succeed. I mean, what would you attribute your success to, and how would you advise other people to make the most of their opportunities?
Well, I would say be involved with your company. Actually get in, get dirty, understand what's going on, have it to a place where you're not the CEO that is untouchable or you can't be reached. And when you have a team that sees your passion and they see how involved that you are in the trench that you're in, they're not doing a job anymore. They're actually passionately believing in the mission that you're involved with because you're with them doing it.
Yeah.
Your life's impacted by the people you meet, the books you read, and the trauma in your life. You faced serious trauma at a young age. Tell us a little bit about that and how that's impacted you today.
Yeah, so, to me, I feel very fortunate that I had an incredible, parents that were in business too, entrepreneurial, and they raised me right. And there was core principal values that were instilled in me in a young age. And, losing my father at 14 years old, I had to grow up pretty quick, and a lot of adversity came my way, but I had a choice to make. And through all those adversities, I mean, some of the greatest leaders you see in history have come through major challenges. And, it's not always on how things are going right and good, and things are easy. It's really the tough choices that you got to make when you're faced and up against the wall with something that's much more challenging than the norm.
You've mentioned about faith in the past. How does faith factor into the way you lead your company?
Well, I do believe that faith without works is pretty dead. So you can have a great vision and you can have faith to execute, but you got to get out there and you got to do it. And so to me, in leadership, when you're faced with the challenges like we're talking about, and still having that faith and that belief to see around the curve, to have that vision, then you could have that right attitude and passion to be able to lead a group together to navigate towards that vision that you're seeing around the corner. And so it does take faith.
Yeah. Now, Tony, what advice would you give to young leaders?
I would say in leadership, be open. Don't try to be the smartest guy in the room, and surround yourself with really talented people and listen. Because a lot of the issues that you're faced with, most of the solutions are right in front of you. And if you're open to listen and to be, to me in the leadership, to say, be a servant. Be willing to get in there and do what it takes to make it work, and listen.
Okay, thank you so much.
Perfect.
Great advice, Tony. Thanks.
Thank you.
Lameness issues, joint pain, and osteoarthritis can be difficult to treat and debilitating for an animal's health and well-being. Take control of lameness issues and joint pain. Introducing Spring, with OsteoCushion technology. With just one injection, Spring with OsteoCushion technology targets the root cause of lameness issues, joint pain, and osteoarthritis, helping animals do what they do best.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using proprietary military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure doesn't collect or sell your data and doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. You can message and email non-secure users privately without the need for others to download Secure. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
Welcome to NTTS Leadership. I'm Jane King.
And I'm Matt Doherty.
And with us today, David Rojas, who is the CEO and founder of Blue Castle Ventures, and Maria Panesso, artist and lawyer. So great to have you both with us here today. And let's just start with the company. Tell us what's new with Blue Castle Ventures, David.
Thank you for having us today. Basically, we're getting ready our course. That will be the first product for the US because we have other products and services for non-US customers. So we're pretty excited because finally I'm gonna be able to share how I am successful with trading stocks, and it's basically all about discipline, having a plan, not allowing your emotions to take over. So basically that's pretty important.
So you're basically a teacher and a coach.
Yes.
What's the biggest mistake your clients, your pupils, your students make?
Well, trying to make the big bucks right away. Like that's something that I tell my students, look, don't focus on the money right away. Just try to focus in the process. Once you perfect your process, then the money will just come to you. Sometimes when you have a position, just the position comes to you. You're not looking for it. The more you look for it, the worse it goes. And I tell them to give value to every dollar that they earn. Even if you're starting, you're making cents, $1, $10. Hey, those $10 you didn't have in the morning.
Right.
Appreciate that, like the little things. And then when you least expect it, you're making 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, right? And you have to understand the markets too. Like I always say in my course, like the markets are a living animal, and you never know what's gonna do. So you have to respect that, try to read the room. And that's part of not allowing your emotions to go wild.
How do you put mechanisms in place? What mechanisms do you put in place to for someone to protect themselves against their emotions?
Rules.
Rules?
Just rules. Rules and a plan that goes to the cent. So, for example, I read the news in the morning, I see a couple of stocks that are shooting, and I read the news and I try to understand what is behind those things, and I try to read between the lines if it's real news or not, so to decide if I jump in, because most people just read the headlines but they don't read the actual body of the news and just go for it, and then it could be just a pump and dump scheme, and most people fall for that. So you have to have a plan. And sometimes when you research a stock, maybe that day your plan doesn't work, but if you have like a very organized log of your notes, then 2 days, 3 days after, the plan just starts to work. So if you're very organized and if you really follow your own rules, like if you say, oh, I have to get out at 3.54, but you start hoping that it will just go up and just keeps going, then you broke the rule, then you're gonna lose money. It's better to lose $100 than $3,000, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And people are just hoping, and they become what we call backholders, and it's annoying because you have your money parked in a company that is going nowhere, and then you miss other opportunities. They say, oh, if I had the money not there, I could have taken these, and it looks so easy, because sometimes, like I say, these trades come to you.
Mm-hmm. And you're in town for an expo, right, in New York? So explain a little bit about that and what role Maria has here.
So that it's a little bit connected to our business in the marketplace, that we have the physical NFTs that we used to call, but we kind of distance from the word NFT. As you've seen, like these NFTs last year were like really expensive, and nowadays they're worth nothing. Whereas her paintings have, the cost of their paintings have grown threefold in less than a year. And it's because she's getting more exposure, to the point that we have an expo today here in New York. I'm not sure if she's the first Colombian artist to have her paintings exposed at the Rockefeller Center on 5th. And we're very proud of her and what we have been able to accomplish together. So,
You want to talk a little bit about your paintings? Where do you find inspiration, Maria?
I'm also a family lawyer, so I used to defend a lot of women. So my inspiration comes from that. I have like 11 paintings, and the topic is women. I paint like empowered women and a lot of those things. My paintings are oil on canvas.
That's great.
Yeah.
and I love her passion, because it's all about passion. Just like I can talk about stocks all day, she just produces and it's like she's just there. Like it's great to
when
see her
you
work.
love something, I think that it's easy like to
It shows.
do it, to
when you have
show,
passion.
to
It's all about love, baby.
Well, thank you, David and Maria, for coming
Thank
by.
you.
Thank you.